Yeah, I hope to. After this, I've got a Imagine Kootenai Economic Development, and then I've got an in-person advisory planning meeting, but I should get back after the APHC in time to join the Zoom one because of the time zone. It works. So I'm going to have 4 in a row, no lunch.
Yeah, you're probably one of the few directors that's busier than I am.
Oh, no, you got twice as many people as I have, Walter. So I'm never busier than you, I'm sure. It's not just the meetings, it's the people, right? How many people need something or think they need something.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not the meetings, it's fielding the phone calls from people.
Yeah.
Are we unmuted? Good morning. I was in the office, this office at the RDCK at 9:25, and I just got in the boardroom. So sorry, I'm behind. My computer isn't on. I have an agenda here. So maybe we'll just start by, and I'll wing it for a while and turn it over to people to talk and what have you. So good morning, everyone. I don't even have my glasses out. Just a sec. I'll get glasses at least. Morning, everyone. It's Monday, November 24th, and welcome to our local Conservation Fund Committee meeting. It's an open meeting. We do have an agenda, and we have people in the boardroom and we have people online, so that's great. And so what we'll do, sorry, my computer is, what we'll do while my computer's booting up is we will call the meeting to order at 9 o'clock. And prior to going to the agenda, I'd like to read the Traditional Lands Acknowledgement Statement. We acknowledge and respect the Indigenous people within whose traditional lands we are meeting today. And so we have an agenda, item number 4. So I'd like a mover to move, and then we'll see if there's any additions. So it's moved and seconded. And is there any additions?
Yes, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had anticipated we'd get the survey results from the 10-year review for this meeting. I believe that was the deadline or the timeline we were working for. Just curious, are those not available at this time?
Yes, we had that. I asked about that in the preparation of the agenda, so maybe I'll just turn it over to Nelson. We had a conversation, and go ahead, Nelson.
Yeah, we can give you an update of what we're seeing so far, but the period doesn't close until December, I want to say 9th. Maybe Rishab in the room can correct me on what that date is. So we thought we'd wait until the period for submissions is closed, and then we'll prepare a summary report and bring that back to a subsequent meeting.
Thanks, Chair. I won't request it as an agenda item. I'll wait for the full review to be prepared. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what I had asked and what we came to. So it will come to us at some point. All right, so any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none, will all those in favor? Is there any opposition? I see no opposition. We have an agenda. We have the minutes. Any comments on those before they move on to the board? Or maybe they've already been to the board. I can't remember. Seeing none, we'll move on. So now, item staff reports, item 6.1. I'll just turn it over to Nelson right now as I get my computer going. Go ahead, Nelson.
So the main purpose of the meeting today is to go over the draft procedures and policy documents that we've prepared. And just as a recap, those documents are just a repackaging of the terms of what used to be the terms of reference for this service. And so we split up into 2 documents, the policy separate from the procedures, and that's what's on the agenda to discuss today. And so we're just here to listen and invite any comments on proposed edits to those documents. And then once we've captured all that, we can redo a second draft and either come back to this committee or just make those changes and bring them forward to the board for consideration. And so I guess that's it, in a nutshell what we're trying to do today. So I'll turn it back to you folks if you have any questions or comments.
All right, I'll open the floor to questions or comments.
I'm in chat and I have my hand up, Chair.
Okay. Please, because I'm not on, yeah, please speak up. I mean, take the floor, and if I miss you, just say your name and we'll carry on. Go ahead, Director Watson.
Okay, thanks. So 2 questions, and by all means, redirect these if you want them in separate items. But the first one is just, can you please refresh my memory? Did we adopt the bylaw for this committee? The report says first and second, but it does not mention adoption.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, that was the third piece of this exercise that we embarked upon a year ago, which was to first create this LCF committee. And so, yeah, that bylaw to create the committee was adopted.
Okay, thanks. My next question is, and this is the one where I'm not sure where you want it, because we now have, I understand we took our terms of reference and moved them into a procedure. What I don't understand is why do we have a procedure and a policy? They seem rather redundant, and generally a bylaw plus a procedure is more than we would normally have for a service regardless. I'm not sure why the policy piece is there.
Yeah, staff.
In conversation with our corporate services, it was determined that this would be the best way to move those, what was in essence policy direction that is intended to inform decision making, and then there's of course a procedures component, which is how the work gets done. And so it was advised to do those in 2 separate documents. If you wish, we could put it back into one, but that was the direction we got from corporate services, and it seemed to make the most sense.
Okay, I'll just supplemental to that end, then I'm sure.
Yeah, please. I just realized I have to go ahead. I'm paying full attention. I just needed to text someone. Sorry, personal emergency, but go ahead.
In all honesty, it's a lot of paperwork for any proponent to try and sort through. You've got the bylaw, you've got the committee bylaw, you've got the guiding document, now a procedure and a policy and the grant application. That's a lot of words for it just seems over the top. So that would be my first input to it. Where we sort them, I'm not sure, but I do not think we need all of those separate documents, especially because they repeat each other quite a bit. That's my comment so far. Thanks.
Yeah, good point. As if we need more paper, but I'm no disrespect. I just mean it just shows how it can grow. Any comments, Sangeeta or Nelson?
Yes, Chair. I see also.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jackman has his hand up. My assumption is the policy is more about how the service is structured versus what the proponent would need to know. And I haven't read through this policy. My apologies. I'm doing it right now if I got it wrong, but I'll turn it over to Gary Jackman, Director Jackman. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Director.
Okay, thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we're kind of jumping into this both ends, but you know, with procedure draft and then the policy. So I guess a few things on the procedure. So first thing, if we're redoing a document, top to bottom, why are we calling it Kootenay Lake? First thing I would change, because it's not just Kootenay Lake, any of the documents. It's a regional district, Central Kootenay Conservation Fund. I focus a little bit on the terms of reference, just trying to find out what all has changed. And I see there's a few amendments. Some of it's good stuff for clarity. We've changed from 5 to 7 members. I'm not quite sure in the conversation, Eric, but I guess that is to get as many bases covered as we can. Other subtle changes, forestry has been changed to forestry and ecosystem management. Well, I guess that's okay. More specific stuff in the rewording, what I've seen is sort of like I've taken the old one, and I've gone through the new one, and I've written everything that's different just to see what jumps out. So one did jump out. Under proposal ranking guidelines, F, the new wording is not that clear at all. It says about for continuing projects, ratings, it used to say ratings will be based on whether the project should be continued. A little bit vague. On the new one, if you go to that, just mark down 3 F, the new wording is not clear. That's two ideas seem to be mixed there. Gonna have to just page through this because it made marks on several pages. Then later on, there was a section, used to be a section in the old terms of reference, which is now rolled up in this bigger document. Continuing projects, that section has been removed entirely. So I was wondering why. So you've got one line that to me wasn't very clear about continuing projects, and you've removed the rest of the wording around continuing projects altogether. Something else is reading further, and this has always been in the documents, but under the conservation, the technical review committee terms of reference used to be Appendix 3. The initial wording is fine about if consultant committee members rather have direct involvement in the project, that committee member will be asked to leave the meeting. These are general words under item 3B in the old document. And then there's another section which exists in both documents that I'm beginning to question whether it should have been taken out entirely or be reworked entirely. And that is the section labeled practical consideration in determining conflict. A lot of what's in that section to me doesn't need to necessarily be there. I think it might have come from Juliet or from David way before that, sort of the Kootenay Conservation Program's general wording. But it talks in this wording in both documents now about members will be excused from discussion of the project at the discretion of the committee. So if we're talking about a real or perceived conflict of interest, there's no discretion. You're just removed. So I think it'd be worth whoever's editing this the next round to have a look at that entirely. The section is labeled practical consideration in determining conflict. There's no discretion. If there's a perceived conflict of interest, if you've worked or are working for one of the proponents and you may gain money from this, then it's not at any discretion. There's also two sections in that segment. The one says committee members will not assist anyone in their dealings with the committee. And then later it says the committee will determine whether or not a committee member can submit a proposal or assist a proponent. So there's actually, again, if you look at that, those two lines, D and H in the old document are contradictory. So I think the conflict of interest can be shortened down. Just use local government words. And if there's perception of conflict of interest, you're not part of the discussion. There's no discretion. There were some other points that jumped out at me, more general between the two documents. There's wording now that we've got the standard wording about projects are evaluated at certain times and timelines. It's nice and clear. I like to see that chart. That looks very good. All of section 3 tends to give, I think, a really good flow as to how this process works. But there's a section in a document that talks about land securement submissions may be made any time of the year, and then talks about if there's time for the committee to respond. I think that could be problematic. What if we get 5 land securement applications in a year? This committee already, I think, is extending tremendous goodwill to us, saying for no money, they're going to use their high-level expertise to help us do this work. So I think we need to have some restrictions and not just make it sound as though land securement submissions are any time of the year. We maybe should have something much more cautious in there. Land securement submissions may be considered after conversation with either the consultant or with staff. I've got a few others here, but I should probably let other people go through their points and come back to them later.
Can I just pause for a moment and ask you, Director Jackman, in regard to what you are noticing here, how are we, what would be your vision of how to communicate those those perspectives to staff and to us as a committee to consider what you're saying so that the committee can process what you're saying? It ties into what we talked about at the strategic planning session where, you know, we want directors' input, and then how do we as a committee process our directors' input?
Okay, so there's the old default, oh, put it in an email. I'm not going to do that. I almost wrote that email yesterday. I almost wrote it this morning because this is a conversation about the changes. So I'm going to recap in as simple terms as I can. I like some of the changes for clarity. There's stuff like adding the appointment of the members. That's good. Changing 5 to 7. I kind of understand that. So I've gone through line by line and word by word. What is, say, the technical committee doing? Out of my analysis, first off, section 3F doesn't read right. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, let's pause for a second.
Well, no, you're not going to solve it, Chair, respectfully. It's just this is a first draft. You need to reread that. And it talks about continuing projects. And the previous wording around continuing projects has been removed in its entirety. So I'm just saying, revisit that clause and revisit the piece that's been removed in its entirety. That's all I have to say today. If someone else has recognized something similar, that's good. Then the other comment, the largest comment.
Can I just pause you for a second?
Fine. Yep.
So 3F says project evaluation by the TRC includes consideration of conservation value for money. Is that what you would feed back to Nelson and say, just so I'm on this kind of following you?
This is under the, I'm comparing all the old wording in terms of reference technical review with the new. The old wording on technical review committee had 3F new funding proposals will be rated on whether they're meeting the fund criteria and if the project should be considered for funding. For continuing projects, rating will be based on whether the project should be continued. Kind of obscure. Your new wording to that clause doesn't make sense. Find it in the new one. Don't have to solve it today. To me, it doesn't make sense. There's two ideas emerged in the new wording. I'll pull it out if you want. I'm not micromanaging here except to say that doesn't make sense. And correlating with that, there's an entire section about continuing projects that's removed. I'm not trying to wordsmith this here. I'm just flagging. Please look at that section. I don't want to wordsmith it. I almost wrote the words and I'm not going to do that. I'm just flagging that needs to be reviewed. Don't expect a solution today, Chair. And then
fair enough. I just wondered how you were going to communicate your feedback to
this is
staff.
it. No other communication. This is it. I'm not writing notes. I'm not writing an email. The continuing projects sections from the old to the new have been truncated, and there's some wording that just needs to be adjusted. Fairly simple. Please, somebody look at it. Not going to write another email. This is a committee where everybody talks about it together. And I have one other general concern on that terms of reference, which if you want, I can recap.
So in the procedure under terms of reference, is that what you're saying? You have a comment? Just trying to follow you here as you go along.
I've been
what
taking.
What page would it be on?
I've been taking the Technical Review Committee terms of reference, the old one, which has been approved by the board. And line by line, I've been comparing that to the comparable instructions or terms of reference for the committee in the new document. And there's two general things that have jumped out at me. One is dealing with continuing projects. It arises in two spots, and the other one is dealing with conflict of interest. I think they both need to be reviewed, which somebody can do in an hour somewhere off to the side and come back. So those are my first two general comments.
Okay. I'll go to staff because someone is wanting to acknowledge your comments. So staff, is that clear, for lack of a better word. Director Jackman's comments.
Yeah, through the chair, if I may speak, I heard what Director Jackman says, so I'm just going to repeat it back because I want to make sure I captured it. Within the context of the new documents compared to the old documents, two areas are unclear, and you want us to relook at wording. One is continuing projects, and the other one is conflict of interest. You point to 3F in the new document section under fund design, where the wording is vague. So I've captured all that, and I think Rishabh and whoever's taking notes and Nelson has captured that. We can look, is that correct?
Under the old terms of reference 3F, there's a comparable phrase in the new one. I'm looking at the old terms of reference 3F has not been translated to the new document. Under the old terms of reference, the entire section on continuing projects has not been translated to the new document. The old terms of reference is what's been approved, and that's what I'm starting with, asking why is it changed and does it make sense?
Okay.
Thanks.
We can look at that. I don't know if we'll be able to do it right at this meeting, but we can look at that. Nelson, maybe he's off, his camera is off, but I'll check with him.
Yeah, we'll just make note of these changes and we can do a second draft and come back to this committee if they wish. As I said, we can do that, or we can make the changes and then bring those changes back to the board, whatever the committee desires.
Well, that's what the chair is trying to do after our workshop on Friday. Is one member of the committee is suggesting something, and for the committee to say go ahead with it, the committee members need to understand, and I'm one of the committee members, so I'm understanding. So that's what I'm probing with you, Director Jackman, is do I agree with you or not to reword it, or do I like the wording the way it is? And that's what we talked about at our meeting last week in regard to the analysis that the board is undertaking in regard to the long list of things. So what I understand on page 20 of the terms of reference, appendix 2, technical review committee, proposed ranking guidelines, number F, you're finding that wording to be unclear?
Can I just give a process for a minute? I think we're overly complicating this, and we have a process to do this. Can I please just describe how we do?
Yes, go ahead, Chair.
Thank you. Sorry to interject, Director Popoff.
No, not at all. Yeah, please go ahead with this.
So we're reviewing, let's just call it all policy. When we review policy, what is accurate is we need to bring it to a committee and make our suggestions, or the board, we make our suggestions. The review process is staff notes it, and in the next meeting, we review everything redlined. Here are the suggested changes. That can include input that's submitted between this meeting and the next meeting, as long as it's redlined in the documents we receive at the next meeting. That is the meeting when we can go through and say, what are we not okay with? That's how we do policies at the board. And that's how this committee doesn't vote on each change. That's not what we're doing. But so technically everything Director Jackman stated, staff notes, they include it as what will be redlined in the next documents, and the next committee, including any submission received between now and then, must be included in that as a redline addition so that we see it. That's how we've done it at the board. Director Jackman, thumbs up.
If I might, Chair, they've added sections. So the new document, it's 3G. I've got several screens open. Let's read 3G. It used to say new, right? Funding proposals. It says funding proposal will be evaluated. It says, second paragraph, second line. For previously funded projects, ratings will progress to date will also be considered. So ratings will progress to date. There's an error in the wording. It's ratings with progress to date will be, there's a typo or something there. As I was reading this, it changed from new to just funding. I've gone through line by line. Then I thought, well, what do they mean? Ratings will progress to date will also be considered as a grammatical error. So then I thought, well, there's a lot more to this. So that led me to the other section, which has been removed in its entirety. So
Right.
when you're dealing with previously funded projects and redline it, like Chair Watson says, I think there's some lack of clarity from the old to the new, and something's been removed. So that's point number one. Please clarify, because previously funded projects have been a bone of contention because some had what might have been a micro career of doing 4 or 5 years of their personal research, and they're paid personally. Is that what we want to do? So previously funded projects are an area of concern for me. This line from the old to the new doesn't make sense to me. And there's another section impacted. So it's a general concern that I think should be focused on previously funded projects. The other one is conflict of interest, which I think this is our opportunity to clean that up a little bit, because to me, there's some conflicts in the wording on conflict of interest. 2 general comments, love to see it in red line, and I'm consuming way too much time of this meeting.
Well, no, I am. Not you, with all respect, Director Jackman, not at all. It's me trying to understand what you're trying to say in regard to what we're trying to do. So in fact, what we have is an unredlined version of a redlined version that we're now trying to create a redlined version of. And so that's where my confusion has come in. And then the previous meeting we had where we were saying, how do we as a committee come to agreement? So thank you, Chair Watson, for clarifying process. And Director Popoff, your patience is a virtue for you. Please go ahead.
Actually, it was good to hear the comments that were made, and a lot of them were I would have made those comments, so they have been made. But what would help us is a red line version, so we know what the changes are being proposed. And now what Director Jackman has mentioned is he had to go through back and forth through 2 procedures that were there, and it does take up a lot of his time. If we had a red line version, he would have made his comments in relation to the red line version, be brought back to this committee to take a look at it. And your point is well taken. You know, one director's comments does not mean that we all agree. Not that I'm saying I don't agree with Director Jackman's comments, but we would like to see them. So it should be brought back to the committee. And what would have helped is the question on the bylaw. If we had the bylaw and the date was adopted in the report, that would prevent further questions. So just my comments there, and I hope that hopefully this kind of helps this committee to go through the process. When I don't have a red line version, it's hard to tell what the changes are. I have to compare what Director Jackman did. So those are my comments, and I thank the chair for trying to set this straight and make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Director Popoff. And I'll turn to Sangeeta before you, Chair Watson. Sangeeta, please go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, point taken.
And if I'm yelling, I'm sorry, I'll try and calm down here. Sangeeta,
it's Monday morning. It's Monday morning. Don't worry about it. A point taken from Director Popoff, but we're actually taking the old document and putting into a new version of what is the procedures. So the red line was kind of complex to do, but I hear your point. I totally get your point. There was something that Kendall said said in regards to the continuing projects. That item was removed, and Kendall, you're in the room, so please go ahead and speak if you can clarify why that item was removed.
Please.
Thank you, Chair. I was not sure if I was able to speak during this meeting, so.
Oh, yeah, to be clear, yes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Sangeeta. I did just want to clarify for Director Jackman, I believe the language on continuing projects was removed because originally the Local Conservation Fund Service, when it was established, was considering approving projects for multiple years, which does happen in the Columbia Valley. So the original terms of reference had language on multi-year projects, and thus a continuing project would be in a project in, say, year 2 of 3 or 2 of 2. So that is not the case with the RDCK Local Conservation Fund. There have never been projects approved for more than 1 year of funding. So I believe that's why the language on multi-year projects and continuing projects was removed in the newer version, or suggested to be removed.
If I may, Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, every project that has received funding year after year was approved every year. So it wasn't as if you approved, for example, we had the Toad project up in Area D. That project was approved every year. It wasn't decided in like 2020 that that project would run its course till 2024. So that's the clarity Kendall has provided.
That's correct. So all proponents apply for funding for 1 year at a time. That proposal is evaluated by the technical review committee with a recommendation going to directors, and they have to do that each year, even if it is for the same project.
Could I just, so would a project anticipate that it's a multi-year project in their first application?
Yes, and there is a question on the application form to inform, for example, the Slocan Valley Pollinator Highway project. When it was originally applied for, they did indicate that it was a 3-year pilot and they anticipated applying for funding in subsequent years. But again, they have had to apply for each year. I believe they've been approved for 2 years of funding now, and those have been through 2 separate project applications that have been evaluated each year by the review committee.
Sangeeta, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Kendall covers it. Thank you so much, Chair.
Staff, directors, are you okay if Kendall has freedom of the floor as a staff member? Like, I just made that assumption. Thanks for stepping in. So, all our staff, do you have anything? No.
I see Director Watson's hand up.
No, I'm coming to her, but I just wanted to kind of get the backlog out of the way so that I could then move on to Director Watson. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Again, I'll mention procedures. Technically, we should have a motion that gives freedom of the floor to Kendall and Julia Craig. They are not our staff, they're an external contractor.
Okay, so that's moved by Director Watson, seconded by Director Popoff. Director, yeah. Thanks very much for that. You get. It's duly noted. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, that's passed. You have freedom of the floor. You already had it, so I'm sorry. Okay, so anything else, Director Watson?
Yes.
I'm sure there is. Go ahead, please.
So I want to go to kind of what I opened with in terms of we went from a terms of reference and a guiding document to a committee bylaw, which is separate from the service outline. So let's just put that aside, to a procedure and a policy manual, as it's called. Plus, we still have the guiding document. So I think the note on the red line, I understand that we're taking one document and moving it into 2 separate documents. The red line approach would be really helpful if you took the terms of reference and said, this moved to policy, this moved to procedure. Because for me, again, these are really redundant documents, and I feel like it's overwhelming and it's actually overcomplicating. My concern is we're also including things that possibly change our process and previous policies that were in the terms of reference based on what we've seen over the last few years. And those additions or changes should be separate from simply changing the template that this terms of reference is in. So I do agree with Director Popoff. The red line is how I can track, is this new, is this old? I'd have to print every one of these documents to go through it all with due diligence to review them. So I think that really what we should be asking of staff is, there's input that's come from this committee at this time, that should be noted. But for the next committee meeting, please take the terms of reference and redline, where has this moved to in which document, and has it changed? Have you edited it? I think, based on what was just said in terms of continuing or a new project, it needs to be really clear that, from what I heard from Kendall, is we're saying you can't apply for 3 years, but you can apply every year. and how that is defined and how administratively burdensome that is. Like maybe we do need to consider 3-year projects to deal with the fact that that's just a lot of applications every year if we know they're going to continue to apply, and put a limit on it. So that's when we would then focus the discussion on, so we're changing this, or we're highlighting how it's worked. And that's a specific discussion on a procedure, not necessarily did we move everything out of the terms of reference into the right document. Those are 2 separate things. So what I'm respectfully requesting is the next meeting has the old terms of reference redlined with where items have moved. And then in each policy and or procedure, we can then double check that we're not duplicating information and making it redundant and also overly complicated, which for me, when I went through all of these, it was way too complicated to know, why are we repeating this? I'm pretty sure we already said this over here. So that would be my first request. And that use the different color, like highlight it when it's like, we're actually changing this from what was in the terms of reference. Sangita looks confused, so I just want to see if that's somehow confusing you. I'm trying to simplify it because all of these documents were very difficult to work through to find it felt very repetitive.
Yeah, no, through the chair, I'm not confused. I get what you're saying. We can try to do that.
And as a comment, when I looked at some of the projects, and it was like, that's the same project. Are we not getting any new projects in? But if it was a 3-year project, it'd have a completely different look to it. When you looked at it, it's the 2nd year of a 3-year project instead of just the same 9 projects. That's all we get applied for each year. So I think it's an interesting idea going for multi-year, just on the perception of who is applying for things. Anyway, that's a digression, but a thought. Go ahead, Director Papa.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to echo everything that Director Watson mentioned. It is confusing to go through. Being a new member of this committee, I went through it all, and if it's confusing to me, can you imagine if public is on the line here, and we do have a public observer on, how confusing it is to the public to track what we're doing? And especially in Area H, where I have some residents that are not really, I guess, are confused at the benefits of the conservation fund that we have, even though it passed by a good majority. But yeah, I would like to see a lot more clear. And I think Director Watson outlined for our benefit and for the public's benefit how to proceed on this. And I hope staff has taken that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, put your hand down, Director Popoff. That way I've got a clean slate, and I'm going to turn to Juliet. Just, do you have any comments?
Hi, everyone. I think
You have
Kendall's
freedom of the floor, so you might as well be free.
Kendall is definitely providing feedback and information. On clarity on why multi-year proposals that are accepted can be problematic is if many multi-year projects are accepted for, say, a 3-year term, you can have the situation in 1 year where there's no funding to allocate. So that is a decision of the directors, of course, but that's what became problematic in the Columbia Valley. And new projects may have ranked higher, or may have been more beneficial, or may have been seen as more technically sound, and yet may not be able to be funded if several multi-year funding projects if all the funding has been allocated to multi-year funding. So
I knew I asked you to speak for a reason. Thank you. Excellent. I interrupted you. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
I think that was the main point of clarity in the conversation so far.
Great. Thank you. All right. So there's no motion, direction to staff. Have we dealt with items 7.1 and 7.2, do you think? Or should we move to 7.2 and see if the conversation evolves? I'm going to move to 7.2. Any discussion?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Based on the comments received from all the directors, more or less, we can work on bringing back this bylaw with that correlation of what was in the old terms of reference, and provide that at the next committee meeting when we're going to actually also be reviewing the proposals that have been submitted for your review by the technical review committee. If that.
Can I clarify, Sangeeta? Do you mean the afternoon of December 4th?
We could, yeah,
Or is
I
it-
don't,
no, it's
yeah,
not.
I don't, no, it won't be then. Probably come in the new year.
Okay, yeah, no, because we had a date conversation earlier, Shelley and I. So thank you, that's good. Director Watson, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was just a misnomer. There's no bylaw we're approving here. This is procedures and policy, just making sure, because we have so many documents, as I've said.
Yes.
In that sense, I think it would also be really good, because we don't have Director Graham here, that it would be helpful. And I know there was a question when these documents were first sent by email, and I had responded saying we shouldn't be discussing these over email. We have a formal committee that needs to be in the committee. If the agenda can be published whenever, or if it can go in a system when we have that gives us, more than 3 days to review it, because it's a lot of documents, that would be helpful. And I do think that we can submit input to staff based on if there's other things regarding policy, as long as that's tracked and what's received in an open meeting. I hope that makes sense. And
yeah,
then
I think close enough. Go ahead.
Well, I'm jumping all over. I was just going to say, when we get to dates without Dr. Graham here, I think a doodle poll would be better. We can't say when she's available, but
Right.
we can get to that when we get to that. December 4th, I'm not available.
Yeah, so FYI, Director Graham had approached me, and then we went back and forth a bit, and at the end of the day, we had this meeting, and she said, go ahead, there's more to come. So we will talk about December 4th in a while. It seems like we've identified items 7.1 and 7.2. We will have red line versions for a meeting to look at the evolution of policies, procedures, and bylaws. So go ahead, Director Jackman, before we move on to 8.1. Go ahead, please.
Thanks. So I did want to chop this up a bit. My line-by-line comparison of the technical review committee, which I think is the heart of it. I do want to loop back. I think the way I read the new procedures, I really like the way Section 3 reads, guiding principles. That to me is better for anybody in the public looking at this as a whole. And in Section 4, as I pointed out, still I'm concerned that we don't leave this land securement open-ended, that we could get several in a year, and that would overwhelm our review committee. Then the other comment I made was that this isn't a Kootenay-like thing anymore, but we still refer to this though. So that's where I say the Kootenay-like thing, maybe it doesn't belong anywhere in here. So under the policy, just going to focus on that, under targets, so it's page 205 in the policy, there is a line in here that conservation priorities for the fund are outlined in the RDCK Kootenay Lake Local Conservation Fund Guidance document. So if this is not the Kootenay Lake thing anymore, is that an appropriate reference to a document? So just highlighting that again, you don't seem to have captured it. This isn't a Kootenay Lake thing. This is a conservation fund, local conservation fund. So under the policy, page 205, should we refer to that at all? Because that is not the priority for Slocan or for anywhere else, upland or wherever. So just bringing that back.
But wasn't it, Director Jackman, just to help me, wasn't it established by bylaw as the Central Kootenay Local Conservation? So it doesn't really say Kootenay Lake in the establishing bylaw.
Now it's just a general thing, not Kootenay Lake, but our document, our brand new document on policy still refers that the priorities are outlined in the RDCK Kootenay Lake Local Conservation Fund guidance document. So is that document still a thing? If it is, then it's not appropriate because the priorities for Spokane are not a Kootenay Lake thing. So just my general comment earlier on is this, we're going through this is generic. It's not Kootenay Lake.
I'll turn it over to Kendall. Go ahead, Kendall.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, great catch on that, Director Jackman. The reason why it still references the Kootenay Lake Local Conservation Fund guidance document is because that's the formal name of the guidance document that was commissioned by the RDCK in 2018. So that document is still called the Kootenay Lake Local Conservation Fund guidance document. It was created in 2018. It has not been updated to reflect additional priorities in the Slocan Valley, and the terms of reference and the technical evaluation criteria, part of that includes a large conservation actions table that projects must address one of these priority conservation actions in order to be eligible for funding. So that's why it's still referenced. I guess could change the name of that document because it is confusing, and I will confirm that I believe the original bylaw was established as the RDCK Local Conservation Fund, and I think it just became casually known as the Kootenay Lake Local Conservation Fund because of the original service area.
So follow-up, Chair?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
For this brand new document, maybe what we just say, priorities include or in part are captured by the Kootenay Lake thing, and down the road, there may be more wisdom coming out of Slocan or other parts, Arrow, whatever it ends up expanding to. So maybe for now, it's just a soft language change to say that this isn't the Bible. This is just requirements are in part. How does it read? Your conservation priorities are typically similar to what's found in this document, not say that it is the outline. Soften it up a bit.
It's noted. Could you put your hand down?
Oh, yes.
Director Watson.
Yeah, thanks. I do want to talk about the guiding document and first just kind of go back to the intention of that guiding document. When we first established the service, one of the concerns was that the guiding, the IUCN whatnot goals were international based. We wanted something very specific to the region in which this conservation service was focused. And so we commissioned that guidance document to say what's happening in, Kootenay Lake and North that we need to focus on so that we're not using international goals that are pretty broad and have no geographical context in terms of what we're specifically dealing with, such as toads. Hopefully they're all good now. That's a lot of money. So ideally they're nice and robust at this time. And now we're focused on bats and corridors and other things. So the document is very much relevant. That is actually the primary guiding document we wanted applicants to be using to focus their conservation efforts. I do think what would be a really good discussion down the road now that H has been added, I believe G is potentially in the queue. We're not sure where that is. Creston might be in there. I think either reviewing the document and or expanding it if it needs to be, or are these objectives covering the full breadth of Central Kootenay? That review should be a separate item we talk about in reference to what applicants need to be reviewing as the guidance document. This is the guidance document they should be using primary to the IUCN. So it absolutely has to be included. It currently is the Kootenay Lake one. I think we need, I've already said that. We need to add a discussion item down the road as to, do we have local experts review this to see, can it be a Kootenay document, or do we need to add some priority areas that, let's say, is in Slocan area? The only kind of edit I would add is that when I noticed it in either the policy or procedure, wherever it was, the document's referenced by the authors. That's not generally what's important. You need to reference, this is the guiding document and it's conservation goals in Kootenay Lake or whatever it's called. I wouldn't start with the authors because that just seems irrelevant. we hired them, but their goal was to provide guidance to those applying. So that's what I would suggest. And we can't lose sight that we spend a lot of money on making sure the applicants are using local guidance and not relying on international guidelines solely. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. So does that mean it's kind of okay to reference it, or because it says Kootenay Lake and not Spokane Lake?
We can't remove it. We can't not reference it anymore, but we need to add to the work plan. Do we need to update if it's just the title? That's easy. Or are there conservation goals that are not being addressed because we now have Spokane Lake involved? That's a different review, but this document has to be the primary guiding document, not the policy, not the procedure. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's good. Gotcha. Fair enough. Director Popoff, then Director Jackman. Director Popoff, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just to expand on what Director Watson said, that document should be reviewed. There should be a name change, not only the name change, but looking forward, there could be other areas that will want to participate also. So we should do a complete comprehensive review of that document and make the change as well, with the intent of adding possibly other areas, not only the Spokane Lake, Arrow Lakes could be added to that at a later date. So it should be all encompassing. And I agree, not international. It should apply to our local area.
Yes. Yeah, okay, yeah. Chair actually was just thinking, believe it or not. Okay, go ahead, Director Jackman. Oh, no, Sangeeta, then Director go ahead, Sangeeta, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we could reach out in the future to the consultants that prepared the document to look at its in the intention of expanding the various conservation goals that are being met to include Spokane. I would hesitate to make it relevant to specific areas, but rather without knowing if we're going to expand the service at this point. From what I understand, Area G had indicated they were interested, but have not indicated they will proceed with referendum, and we haven't heard anything from Creston as well yet. So my suggestion is we can talk to the consultants, work with Kendall to have some conversations around building out that scope of that document. And if that means revising its name to be more generic, then we can do that as well.
Great. I'll just turn to Kendall. Like, conservation's conservation. One would think that there would be some similarities perhaps between Spokane Lake and Kootenay Lake.
Yeah, as Director Watson mentioned, there's likely many relevant and applicable priorities from the Kootenay Lake region over to the Spokane Valley. But I think we know there's been a lot of work that's taken place recently in the Spokane Valley through various projects. There are some unique things going on there that could be reflected and prioritized, but I think that would take some consultation with experts, looking into available research and data and seeing what is in the existing document. But likely as well, many of the same priorities that are in the Kootenay Lake area also likely apply to the south end of Kootenay Lake around Creston, probably also around the Selma area. So much of it would be covered, but there may be some additional priorities that would want to be indicated in there for project proponents.
Well, and conservation is going to evolve. It's different now than it was 20 years ago, right? So it has to be a document that's evolvable without having to go in and change every darn thing as well. So it should be more generic as well. But anyway, that's another story. Could I go to, who wants to talk, Sangeeta or Director Jackman? Who do you think? Director Jackman, please go ahead.
Sure, thanks. So if you think back a decade or longer than that, when we started this, 13 years ago, maybe, whenever the survey happened, we used to say that the projects must address an IUCN priority. And so we went away from that when we had a Kootenay Lake guidance that we said, yeah, or either or. It's been in my mind for a long time. What I don't want to confuse things with now is the precise wording that's right now in the new document prioritizes the Kootenay Lake document. So to me, it's still either or, and it will evolve. So it's a brand new document. The point is soften the language a bit. You don't have to follow the Kootenay Lake thing. It's not a must. You will be addressing an IUCN priority or threat or something in the Kootenay Lake, or maybe it should say other accepted environmental standards or environmental conservation measures. It's just soften the word a little bit now, eyes wide open that we're in the process of transitioning away from Kootenay Lake. So there's work to be done. When we transition away, question, can we use some of this conservation fund money to do that work? Or do we have to come up with another pot of money? Because we shouldn't wait too long to make this Kootenay Lake priority document a little more generic. We should probably work on it in the next year or so. Otherwise,
okay, could we just have Sangeeta answer? Go ahead, Sangeeta.
Yes, through the chair, when we did this work, originally, we did use funding from the Conservation Fund.
Yeah, okay. And
it's a great budget item.
There you go. Yeah. Well said, Director Jack. I don't know, Director Watson and then Director Popoff.
Thanks. I just want to counter a few of Dr. Jackman's statements. First of all, we're not moving away from Kootenay Lake. We're expanding the conservation service. So we're just expanding it. And second, that I just really want to, and this is a really good agenda item to come back to when we can focus on where do we need to go with this, and maybe a bit of an overview from what the consultant said would be helpful, but not full on review. We're not putting a budget item to this at this time. But I think the conversation at the time had so much to do with, we have so many conservation efforts occurring in this region between BC BC Federation, Wildlife, the other wild. We have Nature Conservancy, we have Nature Trust, and CBT doing funding of different things. That overlap is where we were trying to be very targeted. And so while, we don't necessarily want a document that needs to be updated every year, I still wholeheartedly believe I don't want to be repetitive, redundant, nor do I want to intercede with what others are doing. Ideally, when applicants apply, they'd also be saying, here's how we align with the 20 other projects in this area. Our staff can't do that. KCP can't necessarily do that. But I remain concerned about all the different silos of funding specific to conservation, where they're not overlapping with the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Program. That's what I was thinking of. FWCP and the Duncan area and Lardo Valley, they're constantly doing projects and I know nothing about them. And I had asked them previously, can we somehow get updates from you so that when we see conservation service funding requests, we can see if they're aligned? Are they repeating each other? Are they partnering possibly? So the guiding document had a lot to do with also trying to align people and not see grant funding being ineffective or multiplied many ways without it being focused on an outcome. So I just wanted to add that context to it. Again, I think this is a really good agenda item for down the road. But that is the conservation service that still remains a concern to me, or one of the issues. And it's not KCP or us. It's that you have 10 different people you can apply to for conservation funding. They all have their own criteria. They all have their own rules. But there's no oversight saying, well, if you want to talk about beavers over here, and we're foresting or, logging over here, and they're going to apply to replenish that, how do those intersect? And I feel like that's a major gap in the overall conservation world. So a guidance document isn't necessarily going to do that, but it does help focus applicants. That was my intention when I originally requested that.
Got it. Director Papa.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just looking back on this, when this was established a long time ago, and once we started expanding it into Area H and Area F, it's not no longer only the lakes. I've got the river that I'm concerned about. And if we continue expanding it to other areas, there might be other considerations. So what I'm suggesting is review this document and make it generic to our central Kootenay area.
Yep. It's on the list. We'll see where it lands. But know for a fact, conservation is important. And we won't not consider something we'll consider conservation efforts, no matter if they're in areas A through H, where appropriate. Now, is there any other comments? We're going to look at that guide. Oh, Juliet, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to mention with the guidance document that it is very thorough and detailed and a heavy document. And I don't know how many applicants really read that thoroughly. And what we found is that the table that outlines the conservation action priorities for the region is very effective. And we did have the technical review committee look at that table and ensure that it encompassed the Slocan Valley as well, that Area H was reflected in that table. So our suggestion was, rather than a new large guidance document, the directors may want to consider just focusing on that table of conservation actions which are local and do have impact, or some simplified document that helps applicants that isn't quite as technical.
Excellent. I should never judge people's comments. Sorry. That's an interesting observation. Thank you very much for that. It's duly noted by staff. Thanks, Juliet. All right. Any other comments on 871, 72, 8? Any closing thoughts before we try and organize our next meeting? Which would be we have a suggestion on that, but I'm not talking about that yet. I'm saying, is there anything more to talk about before we move to that? Seeing none, we'll move to dates, and the suggestion is a doodle poll. Any priority, we can check with Director Graham, but at this moment, does anyone have a comment about those January dates of the 5th, 6th, and 7th? Very early. Okay, I'll start with Sangeeta, staff, and then go to Director Watson. Please, Sangeeta, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say the meeting frequency is something that we would like to understand from the committee members. Specifically, like currently we're working on revising what was the old terms of reference into these two procedure and policy documents. So that requires at least a couple of meetings, if not maybe 3 at this point, but 2 at least. And I just want to suggest that we pick 2 meetings a year, and if needed, we can cancel the second meeting, because usually we've only met for 1 meeting to review applications, but in this circumstance, we have other documents to review. And my concern on that is staff are directed to limit the amount of administrative costs we apply to the fund, the local conservation fund, so that there's more money available for grants. So the other concern is just the meeting frequency, and I know we're all online and all this. I'm not sure if director expenses are part of the discussion. So I just wanted to add that, and if they're not, that's great. I'll stop there.
Yeah, good comment. That was stated, administrative costs limit. Director Watson, please go ahead.
Yes, first I'll respond to Sangeeta, and then I'll respond to the dates and the agenda proposed. So in terms of frequency of meetings, I'm pretty sure we don't get stipends for this committee. I believe that was omitted from the bylaw. If not, we didn't previously. Administrative staff time, yep, that's great. That I think what I'm grateful to see is that we actually get this in the calendar. And I understand because we weren't a formal committee, we were always scrambling between January and February to plan a meeting. So even just having one in the calendar that we don't have to scramble for, great. I would say we schedule one as per the usual timing to review the recommendations before they go to board. The committee can make the recommendation to the board. So it's January, February. But I would say scheduling one in the fall for currently, I believe there's something in there about land acquisition requests, things like that. So if there's another thing that pops up, we have another one scheduled for the fall. And we can cancel it. That's easier, I believe, than scrambling to fit it in between all of our schedules. So I'd say 2 would be good. And definitely the priority meeting is when we get the results from the technical review committee and we're making recommendations to the board on funding for that year. In terms of the dates actually in the agenda, I'm not sure why we had December 4th in there. That's only a week away. I believe so. So I don't think we need that one. We're not going to have the results. I think it was December 9th, I heard they would be back, and we don't anticipate these documents would be ready by then. So I'd say that one's not considered. For the 5th, 6th, or 7th at this time, I don't necessarily know that I have a commitment at that time, but I would say checking in either via doodle poll or just asking Director Graham would be a good way to go. And if that is when if that is the meeting when we have the results from everybody, great. If it's not, don't book it then. Book it when we have the results from the survey, we have the review documents ready, and we have the recommendations from the technical review committee. Because we don't have all those, we're planning another meeting for February, and we don't want to scramble. So that's my advice.
Okay, so when will the technical review committee have recommendations?
We plan to submit that recommendation document by tomorrow morning.
Okay, so we'll have that. So we want to have a meeting at least 10 days before a board meeting. As staff, in regard to the kind of reorganizing of and redlining that we've talked about, and remember Christmas is coming. Is early January too soon? I'll ask Nelson and/or Sangeeta. Yeah, go ahead, Rashad.
So the survey is open till 15th of December.
Survey as well, thank you. We want that on the agenda.
The data we are getting is not a clean data. It will require some time to clean data and prepare a report. So it will take a little time. That's too much.
Thank you. Forgot about that, even though we started with that. Thank you. So that's looking pretty tight for early January. But when do we need to approve those projects so they get going?
The ideal timing is in February, during the February board meeting. I believe last year it may have been a little bit later, or that could have been in the Columbia Valley, but February is the ideal board meeting. Sometimes I think we've done January, which also works, and that just gives more time for us to prepare the letters to proponents and then for the RDCK to prepare agreements for approved projects.
In regard to the survey, what do the results of the survey have to do with anything? Like, is there a time frame that we should act on the results of the survey? Is that urgent, or could that deal with February? I'll put that out as a thought, and I'll go to Director Watson. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think we can simply ask staff when will those 3 items be ready, and put out a doodle poll for a meeting that will meet all those deadlines, including having those 3 things on the agenda.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
And I say that, like, the survey results don't necessarily have a specific deadline for us to act upon within this budget, but I don't want meetings. So let's just we have 3 top items. We need to talk about 1 meeting in time for the recommendations to go to the board.
In February at the latest. Okay, Nelson.
Oh, thank you.
I saw you. There you are.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to suggest, just because it is time sensitive to do the projects, to keep that January meeting. We're going to need 2 in 2026 anyway. And the other 2 items aren't that time sensitive. And so I guess I would suggest in order that we don't hold anything up, if we could keep the January meeting just for the projects recommendations to come forward, and then we'll schedule a second one to deal with the other 2 items, given also just how much time might be needed for discussion is what I would suggest.
That's a great suggestion. Thanks, Nelson. We could tentatively narrow it down amongst the 4 of us, which day works best, and then ask Director Graham. Go ahead, Director Watson.
Yeah, I don't understand why we need 2 meetings. I don't want 2 meetings in the middle of budget season. And it
No,
seems,
but he was saying the other one could be later. Wouldn't have to be in budget season.
regardless.
Isn't that what I heard, Nelson?
We need the survey. We need the policy and the procedures are time sensitive. They are. We've changed the terms of reference. Those are time sensitive. The longer you wait, the longer we're going to be like, wait, what were we talking about? So those I would consider along with the recommendations on the from the TRC and the survey results. I just don't know why we need 2 meetings. I'd rather not have 2 meetings when we could have 1, especially when the direction is minimize administration.
Okay.
Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
having heard Director Watson and Nelson, and I'll just throw this out there. Yeah, I mean, the survey results can possibly be brought to the board even at a future date. I see Director Watson nodding her head. She'd rather it come to the committee. So I'm just curious, and I'm going to ask the question of Nelson, if that's okay, Chair.
Yep, please do.
Do we have enough time to do the, the crosswalking of the old terms of reference into the new policy and procedures documents, in addition to also preparing a summary of the survey results? Do staff have enough time to do that for 1 meeting coming up in January? Or sorry, it looks like the survey results are done in December. Is that too tight of a timeline? Or February?
I think February might be possible.
Okay, thank you. Is that okay for?
I just worry about if not, like if we don't get it early enough in February to meet our February deadline for board, then that's the recommendations piece wouldn't go till March.
For the policy and procedures, is that just for clarification through the chair?
Yeah, please. We're trying to figure out whether we should be early February, late January.
Yeah, Chair, I was just commenting that the Local Conservation Fund committee meeting, if we do have it early enough in February, then that might make it possible to then follow with the report that needs to go on the board agenda for those recommendations of the projects. So that's why it would just have to be really early in February. But I think that's probably possible to do that.
Then we've got to get the boardroom, make sure we can book it, etc. But so as I look at my calendar, February 1st is Sunday. So the week of, and it looks like the board meeting's on the 19th of February. So that, if we met on the 1st or 2nd or 3rd, not knowing if there's other water committee meetings, the water committee could be the 4th.
Chair, can we please just ask for a doodle poll? Like, we don't have Director Graham here. We don't have all the dates. Staff can look at when the boardroom's available. I don't think doing this through the committee.
Okay, no, I was just trying to get a sense of what the month looked like and the timing of the board, and whether, so early February leaves 2.5 weeks to the board meeting is what, in regard to Nelson's comments. That's all I was looking at. So we could doodle poll for early February. Is that what we're hearing?
I
Go
just
ahead.
suggested,
Yeah, go
and
ahead.
I do have a question through to staff on the survey.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify, the survey closes December 9th, but we wouldn't have results until February?
Go ahead.
Survey closes on 15th of December, and we are receiving responses through letters as well online. So so I just need to feed the system into your online and clear some sort of data.
Okay. Well, I didn't realize the survey was going to be that complicated to get together. Go with what staff needs to do. If you need to break it up, break it up. I don't think it's ideal. And really, I'm just trying to stick to the minimal meetings. Either way, do a doodle poll if you need either one or both. And please put it in the calendar so it's in our schedules. Thanks.
Well, we do have, people have said early January doesn't work. So therefore but Nelson really wants to make sure we get to the February board meeting. So putting those two together, we're looking at early February, that first week of February. That's what all I'm trying to decide is what dates do we put in the doodle poll? And what I'm hearing is we put the dates in the doodle poll of February 2nd, Monday, to February 6th, Friday. Is that correct?
I think we leave it to staff to determine when they have available dates and you put those in the polls. And I only said no to January. I'm fine with early January. I was really trying not to have more than one meeting to address everything. That was my intention. But if you need a meeting early January and you'd rather deal with the committee outcomes, then there you go. I just think it's a lot of extra time.
Well, does anyone understand what we're doing? Because I don't. It seemed like we could have gone early January, but then someone said we can't. So now I'm confused. And then the survey results probably can't be by January. It could be hard pressed to get it out a week before January 5th or 6th. So Sangeeta, you're offering some clarity.
Yes, the clarity is, can you leave it with us? We will look at some dates and make the suggestion. I'm hearing preferences for one meeting. If we can get all of these things done in one meeting, then we can. And yes, if we do it early enough in February, and I'm looking at the week of February 9th, if all things are available that week, we can coordinate something and still get it to the board at the February board meeting, the recommendations from the technical review committee and the participants. So we can get that to the February board meeting if we do it in February. Or
okay, doodle poll. Yep, thanks. Doodle poll it is then. And we've set the general parameters of what will be included in the doodle poll, which is all I was trying to do, is what dates are we putting in there. So it seems like it's going to be maybe the week of February 9th, but Shelley and Sangeeta and Nelson will work on that and see what we come up with. Thank you. Anything else anyone would like to add as we near the motion to adjourn part of the meeting?
Yeah,
All right.
Public time, Chair.
Well, yeah, I should look at my agenda, right? Rural Chair Director Jackman. Public time. I'd like to ask if any of the public online would have a question. I will. Please identify yourself and ask your question. Could we get a link comment or how to access it? Yes, go ahead.
So yeah, through the chair, the survey is, I believe, limited to the participants in area A, D, and E. And if I'm wrong.
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
So area H residents wouldn't be able to participate in that survey. That was a clause in the original terms of reference that is now being acted on for those 3 areas that were originally part of the service.
Yeah, it's a 10-year review survey in year 11. No follow-up? Public, there we go. Okay, thank you. All right. Oh, Director Popoff, I see a hand.
Yeah, just to expand on the comment why the survey is not included in Area H, because we had a referendum on that, and we were not part of the initial establishment of the conservation fund. So that's why it's not included.
Thank you for that clarity. Okay, well, can I have a motion to adjourn? I see we have a motion. It's moved and seconded. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, thanks very much, everyone. Sorry, I was a little scattered at the start there, talking to staff and what have you, trying to save the world again. It's hard, but we tried. So I'll see all of you guys sometime soon, I'm sure. Have a great day and take care. And thanks, everyone, for showing up as we wave goodbye to you. Okay, see ya. Bye-bye.